Gerald report. Will it make any difference?
Good evening. A struggle between rival religious factions turned violent inside the Supreme Court today. Angry members of the two groups punched and kicked each other. Police were jostled, trying to pull them apart. The warring congregation is locked in a big battle for control of the Apostolic Church of the East at Fairfield. Today's flare-up came when they took their dispute to court.
Unexpectedly, the two factions clashed violently in the Supreme Court. Temporarily overwhelmed, police and court security guards called for reinforcements. With the court foyer eventually cleared, tempers continued to flare outside.
I'm now going to warn you that if there's any more violence like was just shown then, you will be arrested for affray and taken away on charge.
This is the climax of unrest that erupted last year when the church split. On one side, those who helped finance it.
Our church, we build our church, okay? We build it with our money. The members build it. It don't belong to no bishop and no one.
On the other side, a smaller group led by Bishop Melis Zia, sent from America and given financial control in April under a Supreme Court order. Last week, the bishop's supporters tried to take control of the church, but his opponents broke down the church doors and have occupied it since. Today, while the appeal hearing broke for lunch, the protest moved to Parliament House. Later, the court appeal was adjourned for a month, but regardless of the final result, both sides vowed to continue their factional fight.
If the judgment is not come in our favor, then it will be a bloodshed.
And late this afternoon, more violent scenes as police tried to keep both factions apart. Attempts to again storm the court failed. Well, here at the Apostolic Church at Fairfield, several hundred of the bishop's opponents have gathered, and they plan to occupy the church for as long as it takes. They say that if the bishop's supporters arrive here and try to take possession of the church, violence will erupt, there will be bloodshed, and under no circumstances will they hand over their church to the bishop's supporters.
Norm, the key figure in this controversy quite clearly is the bishop. Where is he now?
Well, the bishop left for America about 3 weeks ago, following the first court ruling. His opponents here say that he's in hiding. His supporters say no way. He's gone back to see his hierarchy to speak with them, and he's coming back in the next few days, they say, to take possession of what they say is his.
Norm, has the congregation split merely because the bishop comes from overseas?
Well, that's part of it. It's financial and political. It doesn't seem to be religious. He arrived here 4 years ago, tried to change the constitution, which meant that he would have complete control, financial and political control. These people say that over the last 20 years, they're the ones who have financed the church, they're the ones that have put the money into it, and they don't want a foreigner, as they see it, an American, coming here and taking financial control of their affairs.
Okay, Norm, thanks for that.
Thank you.
The state government today
rages following a controversial court ruling and a Wimbledon war of words as the tennis super brat cops a verbal
The
serve.
guy's got away with this all through his career.
First, the religious row that split a Sydney church community. Today it turned violent, with police using batons to try to separate brawling factions of the Assyrian Catholic Church. The rival groups clashed as an argument over possession of their church at Fairfield went to the Supreme Court for attempted settlement. Felicity Moffat reports the religious row turned into a running battle.
The division between parishioners reached flashpoint as members of a 3,000-strong breakaway group sought Supreme Court orders for possession of the Fairfield church. When rivals loyal to the bishop arrived, there was a near riot. Police struggled to end what had become a war in the square outside the court and in the foyer. Tempers exploded, punches and insults were traded, and several people injured. The brawlers are members of the Holy Apostolic Catholic Assyrian Church, but there was nothing holy about today's bitter public feud. Finally, police called in reinforcements. The Supreme Court refused to hear the dispute until there was calm and an agreement from the breakaway group to end a sit-in at the church.
With the court hearing about to resume, the protesters have taken up their chant, this time watched by dozens of police.
In negotiations, lawyers managed to arrange an uneasy truce. The breakaway group will hold this Sunday's service in the church, but after that it's off limits until the court rules on the dispute. Police will be keeping a close eye on what remains a volatile situation. The church is acknowledged as the only real form of national identity for the Assyrians, and it's a church with a bloody history. In 1975, a patriarch was assassinated in California. Late this afternoon, Bishop Marmilas Zaya left the court under heavy guard, but not without more violence. A protester attacked the car, was run down and swooped on by police. More arrests followed. The dispute goes back to court on Friday week. Felicity Moffat, 7 Nightly News.
Peace plan.
St Mary's Church in Fairfield continues to be the battleground for the undignified squabble between the two factions of Assyrian Catholics. Today, the so-called breakaway group maintained its sit-in despite the court order allowing them to use the church only on Sundays and special occasions. Their claim for total control was backed up by violence yesterday when they tangled with their opposition in the Supreme Court. Last night, the breakaways rejected the offer of restricted use when told it would cost them. Their religion is drawn from an ancient Middle East culture. Nowadays, the hot-blooded commitment is more a product of Syrian, Iranian, Iraqi and Lebanese ancestry. Today, the determination hadn't weakened, unlike some voices.
I lost it yesterday.
The dispute between the two factions has little to do with ideology and more with who owns the bricks and mortar. The religious schism was created when a newly appointed bishop presently overseas sought to take over the property. In his words, take it from the hands of a small group. Even though the bishop and his mainstream supporters have law on their side, so far they've resisted calling in the police to remove the breakaway group. The task now for both parties is to work out a compromise. Although the bishop's lawyers moved in today and seized documents, the hope is that the next court hearing in August won't be necessary. Mark Burrows, National 9 News.
Parishioners caused a near riot outside the Supreme Court, with police having to be called in. It was an ugly episode, and one that some churchgoers now say they're ashamed of.
Despite a court order, parishioners occupied the Fairfield church last night, chanting their protests. The war between rival church factions had earlier erupted in a wild brawl at the Supreme Court. Afterwards, the leader of the bishop's group was eager for conciliation.
They are Assyrians, and also we are Assyrians. So they are accepted by the hierarchy of our church. They are welcomed anytime to come and have their services in the church.
But the hand of conciliation was offered at a price, $30 for each one of those services. Today, some of those who took part in the violence were contrite.
I'm very sorry, and so is all the people here. They are sorry what has happened.
But the sit-in continued, along with the tireless chanting. The parishioners have lost none of their resolve to keep church property away from the American-appointed bishop.
It's worth $5 million. America didn't give us a cent.
The churchgoers have, however, agreed to keep the peace, promising no repetition of yesterday's brawling. So, with a temporary truce on the church grounds, the Ethnic Affairs Commission has stepped in to try to mediate a permanent peace.
It has to be pursued through a rational discussion, and I think the communities will do that.
Felicity Moffat, 7 Nightly News.
Next in this Wednesday bulletin.
Leaders of the opposing groups called for calm, fearing the holy war may be getting out of hand.
Prayers at the Assyrian church in Fairfield. Sunday service in a parish divided. Around the corner, the other half of the congregation prayed in a school hall. For 4 years, the battle for control of the church has raged, bursting into the open with a running brawl outside the Supreme Court on Tuesday. The violence between the two groups erupted again last night. In a tit-for-tat attack, 2 men, one from each side, were severely beaten. When they went for treatment, a brawl erupted outside the Fairfield Hospital.
Bashing people, it's not manners of a Christian. And I'll be very, very disappointed to hear one of our people doing such things.
Bishop Mar Mullis is the man at the centre of the row. His opponents claim he wants to control the church's million-dollar assets. The bishop says he only wants an end to the fighting.
If Australia has opened its wide arms to receive us, why we behave like that?
But opponents blame the bishop's followers.
Nobody likes violence. We are trying to keep our people calm and law-abiders, but unfortunately they are starting all this violence.
Despite a Supreme Court order restricting access to the church, one faction has taken over the building and looks unlikely to leave.
We want justice!
They say their spiritual leader, Mar Adai, will join them from Iraq in 10 days' time, a move which could possibly inflame passions even more.
We stay here!
Guy Bevilacqua, 10 News.
Overseas now in South Africa.
When he resigned and he get married and he was killed in 75, then his wife grabbed everything from the church. So we don't want that to happen again.
Both sides have called for a peaceful resolution to the problem and an end to violent brawls that caused 2 people to be injured and charged yesterday. Lucy Fox, 7 Nightly News.
Confrontation last night resulted in injuries and arrests.
These were last night's casualties in the tit-for-tat holy war, which has driven a wedge between parishioners at the Assyrian Catholic Church at Fairfield. It happened after a demonstration outside a priest's house. 2 men were arrested. But this morning, on the day of rest, a different story, as the rival factions in the rumpus over who owns the church found salvation in prayer. Back from Chicago and straight home to trouble, the Assyrian bishop Mar Melis Zaya is the man the courts say has control of the church. But today he gave mass in a school hall, urging calm and restraint.
We have to prove that we are civilized people. And we're living in a civilized society. Bashing people, it's not manners of a Christian.
And the bishop's rivals, who contest his authority, also pledged today to find a way to resolve the friction without further violence.
Trying to avoid every possible means of violence. We're trying to settle things peacefully. But sometimes you can't succeed, with your efforts.
Tonight, the bishop has put his faith in the courts to settle the row, and he's indicated he won't call on the police to reclaim the church. Russell Bishop, National 9 News.
In a hall not far away, the supporters of Bishop Mar Melis Zaya held their own service. The bishop had made a hurried return from America when news of this week's clashes reached him, and his message today seemed designed to cool crusading zeal.
We have to reach a peaceful settlement in order so they can leave peacefully without someone, dragging them out of the church. And we're not that type of people.
Whether the bishop's calm words can prevent a repetition of the anger and confrontation seen earlier this week rests with the followers of the 2 church factions.
Police in Brisbane.
Violent and church-backed carnage in the Middle East seem pointless. Well, last week, rival factions of the Assyrian Catholic Church brought their 2,000-year-old fight into the foyer of the Supreme Court of New South Wales. It was an ugly confrontation that had its sequel on the weekend. Eric Campbell reports.
No, we are not violent people. We are very peaceful people.
We are not killers. We are not revenge people. The only thing we ask for our rights.
We're people here that have been living here for 20 years and over 20 years, peacefully.
For the past week, Sydney has watched a violent battle between an ancient people played out on the streets. Do you think people here have been behaving in a very Christian way the past few days?
Not really, nah, but they're emotional. What can they do?
They were emotional at the Supreme Court last Tuesday, assaulting one another, smashing glass, shouting, screaming, kicking. They were emotional again on Saturday, brawling in a western suburb shopping centre.
They attacked us. Some of them was carrying their knives, their screwdrivers.
And they say they will stay emotional until their battle is won.
After all these years of hard work, if we end up in the street, what do you expect us to do? Just shut up and sit and go do something else? It's not that easy.
At its simplest level, the battle is over this small Catholic church in the suburb of Fairfield. One faction opposed to an American-appointed bishop has occupied the church to prevent another faction loyal to the bishop from taking possession of it.
The church is built from the contributions of members, and they are paying their subscription fees regularly to this church to keep it and maintain it and look after it for the past 20 years now. Why the bishop's taking it from its members?
These are the rebels opposed to the bishop. They claim he's intent on seizing their property and destroying their control.
Mate, he can go back where he came from. He's not a man, he's a dirtbag.
Well, I can't help it. I'm American. What do you want me to do? You know, we couldn't.
And this is the bishop, Mar Milas Zaya, a 32-year-old Californian who's adored by his followers.
It's like a Jesus for us.
The split in the Assyrian community began 4 years ago when Bishop Zaya was appointed by the church leadership in America. The bishop's reforms antagonised the church trustees, who stopped him holding services in the church and eventually switched allegiance to a rival patriarch. But the bishop insists the opposition comes only from those who had tried to selfishly control the church for their own purposes.
It's our church since 1970. It was built, purchased by the donation of the whole parishioners, but unfortunately was registered under the Companies Act. And a few people, they control that company through proxy system, abusing the system. They fired certain priests, they fired the bishop, they sacked the archdeacon who served there for 20 years. So it's really becoming like a club.
It was the bishop's action in overthrowing the company in court that eventually led to last week's violence. The rebels staged an angry demonstration which descended into brawling. But they insist they're not to blame.
We haven't broken the law.
You committed assault, you smashed the window of the courtroom. What right have you got to do that?
Well, we didn't go for fight there. It was the other side when they started their assaults and that's when we stuck into
So
them.
they attacked you?
Yes.
They say that you attacked them?
Well, what business they had to go to court that day?
The bishop might be the focus of this battle, but the hatred in this small community runs much deeper. In fact, it's a community in name only. Assyria has not existed as an empire for 2,500 years. And while the church might once have been a symbol of unity for these Syrians and Iraqis, it's now a symbol of their differences.
They are very law-abiding citizens, and I doubt that they will do anything against the law. But
they have already last week outside the
court.
They
did, but I'm speaking on our behalf.
If this case go on another time with the court and we got a decision against us again, that time, God knows what's going to happen in this country.
God knows. A 2,000-year-old dispute with not too many answers forthcoming here in Australia. Eric Campbell reporting. Next up, Aussie diet fraud Peter Fox.
So says the bishop, the target of their anger. But they say he can go to blazes.
This man here, he's a devil in himself.
He's the what, sorry?
A devil in himself.
He's a devil, is he?
Yes, he is. To me, he's a devil. He's not a bishop.
Does this man deserve to be killed?
God will kill him if he's man of God.
Over an obscure dispute splitting the Assyrian church. Religious violence is now apparently a byproduct of our immigration and refugee program. On one side of the Assyrian dispute is Bishop Joseph Zaya, who has lost effective control of his church building in Sydney's western suburb of Fairfield.
This is terrorism. Yes, it is. And I'm very surprised to see such thing happen in a democratic country, a country which opened its arm wide open to those people, to receive them, to be law-abiding citizens.
Against the bishop, a couple of thousand parishioners who reckon they built the church and that the bishop should go to blazes. Well, good evening to you, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Richard Carlton, and welcome to the Channel 9 studios here tonight. Some of you were in the crowd when the punches were thrown and when the Middle East cauldron spilled over into the streets of Sydney. Let's have a look at what you did.
If our rights will not be restored back, I assure you there will be violence, there will be bloodshed.
That, sir, is you. Are you proud of your behavior?
They all after me. They said we're gonna kill you.
Yes.
And I got a proof. I got a proof that they said they're gonna kill me. They're after me.
That's my husband. He was talking to. He didn't start fighting. If he was for fighting there, he didn't take a pregnant wife with him with 3 kids.
Mr. Carlo, you were there too, weren't you? And you were the one that said, if our rights aren't restored back, there'll be violence and bloodshed. Yes. May I suggest to you that's not acceptable in Australia?
No, I know it's not.
Well, why are you behaving like that?
What do you expect me to say, or when I have been stripped of my rights?
Do you recognise that that's not acceptable on the streets of Australia?
Well, nobody likes it, really. As a matter
Do you want to apologise for your behaviour?
I haven't done anything myself.
Well, there you are. You said there's violence and bloodshed if your rights aren't restored. The court has not agreed with you.
Yeah, I know the court is not agreed, but the court is not recognising our rights too.
I see. You're above the court?
No, I'm not.
Will you obey the court?
I am asking the law to restore back our rights.
Good, good. Now, Bishop Zaya, could I play to you what he thinks of you and your group?
They made a promise to this country, to this government. They will be law-abiding citizens. They will do everything possible in their power to serve the country. If this is their promise, well, I'll leave the rest to the government.
Well, Mr. Nano, what have you got to say about that?
This man here, he's a devil in himself.
He's the what, sorry?
A devil in himself.
He's a devil, is he?
Yes, he is. To me, he's a devil. He's not a bishop. He's not a man of the God. Right? The man of the God, he should create a peace.
Does this man deserve to be killed?
This man, well, I'm not going to say that he deserves to be killed. God will kill him if he's man of God.
But you have said it before, haven't you?
Did I say that?
Yes.
I don't remember. I don't recall whether I said that.
Well, I'll give you the words exactly. Would you like them exactly?
Yes, yes, go ahead.
So you would go into the bishop's place and kill him. Kill for the church, you said.
Did I say that?
Yes, indeed.
Did I say that?
Yes, sir.
No, I never said that. I don't recall that I said that at all. Now, you tell me, up 1985 when this man came to this country, did we have any fight? Did we have any violence? No.
It's his fault.
Yes.
Are you going to obey the court's ruling here?
The court of Australia doesn't know our problem. The court of Australia cannot solve our problem. It's a religious matter. It's a family matter.
Are you going to obey the court?
For how long will I... What? Strip me from my right and throw me in the street? Where is the 20 years hard working? Where is it?
I don't know.
No, you tell me. I want to know.
Are you going to obey
no,
the
this is
court?
what we're here. I want to know where is my right for 20 years I've been building. I want to know.
Answer the question yes or no. Are you or are you not going to obey the courts here?
I will agree with the law. If the law doesn't give my right, I don't agree a bit.
So
there's no justice.
You'll agree with the law when it goes your way?
Yeah. No. I want justice. I'm seeking, we are all here, we're seeking justice.
How many of you agree with this man? Are you familiar with Matthew chapter 5, verse 9?
No, not at all.
You're not?
No.
Let me read it to you.
Go ahead.
May I?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God.
Sure, I heard that.
Are you a child of God?
I'm a child of God, but that man who showed me in the TV,
yes, and
that man, he's a messenger of God.
But God's on your side, is he?
Of course he's on my side.
Does everyone here believe tonight that God's on their side?
Yes.
And the bishop is totally wrong, is that it? Yes. Is God on his side? No. But God's opposed to him, is he?
The devil is his side.
The devil's on his side?
Yes.
It's as simple as that.
He's supposed to come here to teach us to love each other, not to hate one another.
Since it's come to Australia, that's what he's done, and nothing else about it.
Were you involved in the violence?
No, I was there. I was protesting for my rights.
Were you punching and kicking?
No, I wasn't punching nobody.
What do you think of the people who were?
I think they're just fighting for their rights.
I just want to ask you, if somebody came up and punched you, would you stand there and let him punch you?
No, I'd get out of the way.
You would? You just would let him go, just like that. That's what the government's doing here. When somebody kills somebody, they just let him go. But because we're fighting for our rights, they've got to make everything, they've got to put it all in the media, and they've got to make us look bad in front of everyone, don't they?
They're telling you to abide by the law.
Yeah, I'm saying, why don't they tell the people they go
They're telling you to abide by the law and not turn on brawls.
We are abiding by the law.
No, not by turning on brawls in the foyer of the court.
Do it.
Well, just a moment, there's the man that we've seen.
The bishop would say, his people, that they didn't do it. They have to say that because they want to make themselves look good. They can't make themselves look bad in front of national TV.
It was wrong. What happened at the course, it was wrong.
Do you want to apologise for it?
I've already apologized before, and I'll apologize again.
And does anyone else want to apologise for it?
Yes, because we've never done this before. We came here first, I understood, to see Bishop, what he's speaking, then we answer his question, not yours.
Listen to it.
With their primitive thinking, they think that this is a way of getting a sympathy of the people. And number two, again, with a very primitive thinking, probably they think that they can affect the law.
They are primitive people, are they?
Yes, I think so.
Do you mind being called primitive?
What primitive means?
Well, primitive?
Yeah, well,
primitive is like apes in the trees.
In the trees. If he was a man of God, he wouldn't call his people. He wouldn't call his people. Okay, he wouldn't call his people that word.
So he's not a man of God?
Of course, a man of God, he should preach as a man of God, not as a man of whatever he said in the picture.
Can you understand that some Australians, possibly many Australians, couldn't give a damn about the arguments within your church that go back thousands of years and back into the arcane arguments of the Middle East?
Well, why did you
and we don't want them on the streets of Australia or Sydney either.
Well, you shouldn't open the doors in the first place, should you?
Well, then should the mistake be corrected?
Well, ask your legislation and government. Don't ask me the question, right?
Yes.
You said Australian people, they don't like us fighting in their streets. Why you were fighting in Second World War in our country, you and Germans, and killing our people there? In North Africa. You were fighting for justice, innit? So we are fighting. But there's no justice.
Where is your country now?
Middle East. It was Middle East.
Where is your country now?
This is my country. This is my country.
Okay. And will you accept?
And put my hand on Bible that I'll be loyal to this new country.
We tried so hard to get some of them from while they were in refugee camps overseas, to get them into this country. I personally worked so hard for them to bring them here, but unfortunately a handful of people reflect this bad image for all the Assyrian community in Australia, which is this is what I regret very much.
Is he telling the truth or not? How many people here are from refugee camps that he helped into the country? Do you owe him nothing at all? Ladies and gentlemen, you might be a bit surprised as to why the bishop himself is not here to put his arguments to you directly, but I did ask him to come, and here's what he had to say. Why won't you face them and have an argument with them face to face?
I did in the Supreme Court.
Yeah, you won't tonight. They say you're a coward.
Well, I thank them very much, but I am not coward. I am civilized.
Well, then have a civilized argument. Fight with words, not
They
with
do
fists.
not understand that language. I am not ready to sit with a person who speaks of violence and terrorism and bloodshed. I am not ready to do so.
Violence, terrorism, bloodshed? Speak up, ma'am, sorry.
You seem to have this biased thing towards us. Because we're from the Middle East, all we want to do is fight. Why are we any different to any other protesters that you open the TV and see?
Because it is only the split in the Assyrian church that is causing riots in the foyer of the New South Wales Supreme Court.
That was just that one day.
Well, then we have last Saturday as well. There are 10 arrests, I understand, so far.
They're the ones who started it.
Well,
Don't laugh, all right? We're not coming here to laugh on us, all right?
Ian?
That's not fair.
هذه توم يقدموا
ما كان غلطة بنجك طيزة.
God, one more go. Make it sensible. Make it intelligible.
Now, Ian, I just want to tell you something. I don't think so. Just a minute, please. Quiet. Quiet. People of this country, for Christ's sake, listen to us. Where is our right for 20 years we've been working for? Where is it? That's what we want. I'm not finished.
Let's have a word with your colleague. Sorry, I can't hear you. Say it again, sorry.
Everything went in their own way, not our way, okay?
They won.
They won because they paid a lot of money. We didn't have any money to pay for the government.
They won.
Well, they won in a way, yes.
Now accept the court's ruling.
Well, we don't accept it because it's not the right. We're trying to look for our justice.
But you've got to, in this country, accept the rule of the court.
Well, a lot of people have been victimized because of no justice. Is that right or wrong?
But the court has spoken, you accept it.
Well, they could say anything they like, yes.
And not engage in violence in the foyers and in the streets.
Well, I don't think any violence is accepted in any country, really. But when someone has been pushed into a corner so he can look for a violent, he has to look for a violent.
I think that we've covered all the areas that we're going to cover tonight, ladies and gentlemen. I thank you all very much for coming here this evening.